Good evening, my dear friends, and welcome. Tonight we embark on a journey into the soul of a woman whose name echoes with compassion, courage, and a relentless will to heal. Clara Barton, the indomitable founder of the American Red Cross. But before we begin, let me assure you this is not merely a retelling of facts you might find in dusty textbooks. No, tonight we will peel back the layers of legend, venturing into the shadowed corners of a life lived with such ferocious dedication that it almost defies belief. Because, you see, there's a story behind the stories, a quiet undercurrent beneath the roaring waves of her public achievements. A truth that, if you listen closely, will reveal not just what she did, but why she did it with such an unyielding fire. It's a secret, perhaps even to herself at times, that fueled her every breath, every tireless act of mercy. A burden, yes, but also a profound wellspring of strength. And by the end of our time together, I believe you will see her, not just as the angel of the battlefield, but as something far more complex, far more human, and infinitely more profound. Our narrative begins, as all good stories must, at the very beginning. The year is 1821. The place, a quiet farmhouse nestled in the pastoral landscape of North Oxford, Massachusetts. It was here, on a crisp Christmas day, that Clarissa Harlow Barton entered the world, a name that even then carried a hint of the elegance and quiet strength that would one day define her. She was the youngest of 5 siblings, a position that often bestows unique characteristics upon a child. For Clara, it meant being surrounded by the older, more boisterous personalities of her brother and sisters. And in this vibrant, bustling household, a paradox began to form. For Clarissa Harlow Barton, the future titan of humanitarian aid, was, by all accounts, painfully shy as a child. A whisper of a girl, almost swallowed by the vivacity around her. Imagine, if you will, the tiny Clara, observing, absorbing, a quiet sentinel in a world of giants. Her shyness, however, did not equate to a lack of intellect or a void of curiosity. Quite the contrary. It simply meant her learning, her understanding of the world, unfolded internally, meticulously observed. And in a rather unconventional turn, her first students were not strangers, but her own older siblings. They, in turn, became her teachers, a symbiotic relationship that forged a unique educational path. Her brother David, 12 years her senior, became her protector and her first, most impactful mentor. He taught her practical skills, lessons that instilled in her a pragmatic independence, a ruggedness that would serve her well in the future. Her sisters, Dorothy and Sally, cultivated her academic pursuits, teaching her to read and write. And from her father, Captain Stephen Barton, a veteran of the Indian Wars, she absorbed stories, not of glory and triumph, but of suffering, of the brutal realities of conflict. These tales, told in the hushed intimacy of a family home, planted seeds in young Clara's heart, seeds of empathy and a burgeoning understanding of human pain. Life on the farm, though simple, was far from idle. Clara learned the rhythms of nature, the demands of self-sufficiency. But her inherent intelligence, coupled with that quiet observation, pointed her towards a path of teaching. It was a natural progression. At the tender age of 18, she opened her own school. Think of it, a young woman barely out of childhood herself, taking on the responsibility of educating others, and she did so without a formal teaching degree. This was a testament to her innate abilities, her profound desire to learn and to share that knowledge. She excelled, proving herself a natural educator, able to connect with her students, to ignite their young minds. Yet, even in this burgeoning career, the societal limitations placed upon women began to manifest. Despite her undeniable success, despite her clear talent and dedication, Barton was paid less than male teachers. It was a stark reality of the era, a pervasive inequality that gnawed at the edges of even the most accomplished women's lives. This wasn't merely an economic slight, it was a devaluation of her skill, her effort, her very worth. This early experience with gender-based discrimination would become a recurring theme in her life, a persistent thorn that fueled a quiet yet firm resolve. Her ambition, however, transcended the confines of her small Massachusetts schoolhouse. She sought to make a larger impact, to truly innovate in the field of education. This drive led her to Bordentown, New Jersey, where she would make an indelible mark. It was there that she founded the first free public school in New Jersey. Imagine the revolutionary nature of this idea at the time. Education, not as a privilege of the wealthy, but as a right for all, accessible to every child, regardless of their family's means. She started small, with a handful of students, but under her visionary leadership, the school flourished, growing exponentially from a mere 6 students to over 600. Her methods were progressive, her dedication unwavering, and the success of the school a clear demonstration of her exceptional organizational and leadership skills. But history, it seems, has a cruel way of repeating itself, especially for women of extraordinary talent in an era of entrenched patriarchal norms. As the school's enrollment swelled, as its reputation soared, the male-dominated school board saw not an opportunity to elevate its founder, but a chance to consolidate traditional power. And so, with a sting that must have resonated deeply, she resigned when a man was hired as principal over her. He, a man with no prior connection to the school, no investment in its founding principles, was placed above the woman who had nurtured it from infancy into a thriving institution. It was a devastating blow, a raw exposure to the unfairness that would haunt her for years. This was not just a career setback, it was a profound personal affront, a dismissal of her intrinsic value and groundbreaking achievements. The experience in Bordentown left an undeniable mark, a scar that never fully healed. It sharpened her awareness of systemic injustice and perhaps, in a way, redirected her formidable energy. Disillusioned with the educational establishment, Clara sought a new path, one that would offer a more equitable playing field, or so she hoped. She moved to Washington, D.C., a city buzzing with political intrigue and burgeoning opportunity, especially for those with a sharp mind and a strong will. And it was here that she achieved another significant milestone, albeit one that, at first glance, might seem less grand than founding a school. She took a position as a copyist at the U.S. Patent Office. Now pause for a moment and consider the significance of this. She was the first woman to work at the Patent Office. In a landscape dominated by men, in a government institution that reflected the rigid gender roles of the time, Clara Barton broke through. She wasn't merely a clerk, She was engaged in the meticulous, often complex work of transcribing patent applications, a task that required precision, intelligence, and diligence. And, for a brief, shining period, she received equal pay for her government work, a reality incredibly rare for women then. This was a triumph, a recognition of her skills, her intellect, unburdened by the prejudice she had faced in education. It offered a glimpse into a world where merit, not gender, dictated worth. But the progress was fleeting. The winds of change, though sometimes whispering in favor of equality, could also shift with brutal force. The very presence of a woman in such a prominent government role was seen by some as an affront to decency, a challenge to the established order. The whispers turned into murmurs, the murmurs into outright complaints. Eventually, the pressure mounted, and the unthinkable happened. She was demoted and ultimately dismissed because of her gender. The bitter taste of injustice returned, perhaps even more acrid this time, for she had tasted true equality, only to have it snatched away. This wasn't merely a demotion, it was a public shaming, a clear message that her place as a woman was not in the halls of power or the offices of government, but elsewhere, in a sphere deemed more appropriate. This repeated pattern of being sidelined, of having her achievements diminished because of her sex, forged in her a formidable resilience, a quiet determination to prove her worth, not to society, but to herself, and ultimately to humanity. It was against this backdrop of personal and professional setbacks that the ominous drums of war began to beat. The nation teetered on the precipice of a conflict that would tear it asunder, a conflict that would, paradoxically, unlock Clara Barton's true calling. Before the Civil War erupted, she was already a fervent abolitionist, a woman who believed deeply in the inherent dignity and freedom of every individual. Her moral compass was clear, pointing towards justice and human rights. This conviction, coupled with her father's stories of war and suffering, all began to coalesce into something more profound than mere intellectual sympathy. Then came a pivotal moment, a personal event that would forever alter the trajectory of her life. Her brother David, the same brother who had taught her to ride and climb, suffered a severe injury. For 2 agonizing years, Clara nursed him back to health. This wasn't just a sisterly duty, it was an immersion course in practical nursing, in the demands of long-term care, in the intimate understanding of pain and recovery. It was hands-on learning, intuitive and deeply personal. She had no formal medical training, no degrees in nursing, but what she possessed was far more valuable. A boundless capacity for empathy, a keen observational eye, and an unwavering commitment to alleviating suffering. This experience, though rooted in personal tribulation, served as an unwitting apprenticeship for the grander, more brutal stage that awaited her. The Civil War exploded, a cataclysm that ripped through the fabric of American society. The battlefields became scenes of unimaginable horror, and the rudimentary medical systems of the time were utterly overwhelmed. Soldiers, wounded and dying, lay unattended, lacking even the most basic supplies. While many, particularly women, engaged in volunteer efforts, collecting bandages and preparing food from afar, Clara Barton felt an irresistible pull towards the front. It was not enough for her to stay home and knit socks. The stories of her father, the lessons from David's sickbed, and her abolitionist convictions all converged into a singular, urgent purpose: to be where the need was greatest. And so, she began, not with grand pronouncements or official commissions, but with a quiet, determined practicality that defined her every move. She saw a dire need for supplies at the front lines, a gap in the logistical chain, and she decided to fill it. She taught herself military logistics and supply chain methods, poring over military manuals, understanding the intricate dance of moving goods, the necessity of efficiency and speed. This was a self-education born of necessity, driven by an almost obsessive desire to be effective. She bought supplies with her own money, begged and borrowed from friends, and then, with a courage that defied the conventions of the era, she personally delivered them to the front lines. Imagine the scene. A woman, alone or with a few trusted associates, navigating the chaotic and dangerous landscape of a war zone. The journey itself was perilous. Roads were often impassable, filled with marching troops, supply wagons, and the constant threat of enemy patrols. But Clara Barton, small in stature but immense in spirit, pushed forward. She risked her life many times to aid soldiers under fire. The roar of cannons, the whistle of bullets, the cries of the wounded, these were the sounds that became her daily accompaniment. She walked directly into the maw of battle, often arriving as the fighting raged, or immediately afterward, when the ground was still slick with blood and the air thick with the smell of gunpowder. She was often told she was too close, that she should retreat, but her response was always the same: where there was suffering, there she must be. And her compassion knew no bounds, no political allegiances. She nursed both Union and Confederate soldiers. To Clara Barton, a wounded man was simply a wounded man, a human being in pain, regardless of the uniform he wore. This neutrality, this profound humanism, was radical in a time of such deep division. It was a precursor to the international principles of the Red Cross itself, a living embodiment of the idea that suffering transcends national borders and ideological divides. Her tireless efforts, her willingness to brave danger for the sake of others, quickly earned her a moniker that would follow her for the rest of her life, a name whispered with reverence on the battlefields. Angel of the Battlefield. It was a tribute not just to her presence, but to the solace, the hope, the actual physical relief she brought to men in their darkest hours. Her presence at major engagements became legendary. One of the bloodiest days in American history, the Battle of Antietam in September 1862, bore witness to her unwavering dedication. The sheer scale of casualties was horrific. Thousands of men cut down, bleeding, dying. The makeshift hospitals were overflowing, the surgeons overwhelmed, their instruments dull, their resources meagre. But into this hellish landscape stepped Clara Barton, bringing not just supplies, but a calming presence, a fierce determination. She worked 24-hour shifts without rest during battles, tending to the wounded, distributing food and water, holding hands, whispering words of comfort. She was the one who, seeing a desperate need for a lantern during a night surgery, ran into the thick of battle to retrieve one, nearly being hit by a stray bullet in the process. Such was her single-minded focus on the task at hand, the immediate need of the suffering soldier. It's crucial to understand the context of her actions. This wasn't a woman with an organizational budget, a government grant, or even a pre-existing charitable foundation backing her. No, she used her own money to purchase supplies, depleting her personal savings, sacrificing her own financial security for the sake of strangers. This wasn't charity. It was an investment of her very being, a profound commitment born from a place that went deeper than simple philanthropy. And this fierce independence, this self-reliance, while enabling her incredible feats, would also, in later years, become a source of both her greatest strengths and her most profound challenges. The genesis of her deep interest in military matters and the suffering of soldiers wasn't just a sudden awakening. It was rooted in her childhood, in the narratives spun by her father, Captain Clara Barton. His stories of war, not romanticized tales of heroism, but gritty, visceral accounts of the realities of conflict, had a profound impact on young Clara. He spoke of the wounded, the sick, the neglected, and these early impressions imprinted themselves on her sensitive soul, creating a subconscious preparedness for the horrors she would one day confront. It was as if her entire life, from the quiet shyness of her youth to the harsh lessons of discrimination, was preparing her for this singular, monumental purpose. She was a whirlwind of activity, constantly moving, constantly assessing needs, constantly finding ways to circumvent bureaucracy and get vital aid to where it was most desperately required. Her personal satchel, a constant companion, carried iodine and bandages ready for immediate use. She hand-sewed uniforms for Red Cross volunteers, a testament to her hands-on approach and her dedication to practical support. When large-scale crises struck, she took only brief naps, snatching moments of rest when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, but always returning to the task with renewed vigor. The stories of her courage abound. She once carried a gun for protection while traveling through dangerous territories, a stark reminder of the very real threats she faced. But this wasn't about aggression. It was about survival, about ensuring she could continue her mission. She traveled alone frequently, a highly uncommon and often frowned upon practice for women in the 19th century. Yet, she defied these societal constraints, driven by an inner compulsion that superseded conventional expectations. Her passport, a rare document for a woman of her time, listed her occupation simply as relief worker, a title that understated the immense scope of her pioneering efforts, yet perfectly captured the essence of her life's purpose. Her commitment extended beyond the battlefield. She worked with the Freedmen's Bureau after the Civil War, recognizing the immense suffering and dislocation caused by slavery and the war's aftermath. She helped teach ex-slaves to read and write, understanding that true freedom included the tools for self-sufficiency and empowerment. This was not merely about treating wounds, but about healing communities, about building a more just and equitable society. She insisted on racial integration of aid distribution, a revolutionary stance in a deeply segregated America. She saw human need, not color, and her aid was given without prejudice. In a truly astonishing act, she personally intervened to stop a lynching once, demonstrating not just her courage, but her unwavering commitment to justice for all. even in moments of deep personal despair, and she suffered from depression during her life, she found the strength to carry on. The weight of the suffering she witnessed, the relentless grind of her work, the constant battles against indifference and bureaucracy all took their toll, but something within her, that quiet, unyielding fire, pushed her forward. She found solace perhaps in poetry, often using it to cope with loss, with the profound sadness that surely accompanied her daily encounters with death and destruction. Her personal experiences with hardship continued outside the war as well. She was once severely injured in a train accident, a reminder of the fragility of life and the ever-present danger of travel in that era. Yet even such a profound setback couldn't deter her for long. Her recovery, perhaps aided by her own practical medical knowledge, was a testament to her resilience. As the war drew to a close, a new, massive task emerged, one that haunted countless American families. Tens of thousands of soldiers had simply vanished, their fates unknown, their families left in agonizing limbo. The government, overwhelmed, had no systematic way to address this, but Clara Barton did. She ran the Office of Missing Soldiers after the Civil War, an endeavor born from her deep empathy for the suffering families. She understood the desperate need for closure, the profound human cost of uncertainty. Her home in Washington, D.C. literally doubled as the Office of Missing Soldiers, a testament to her total immersion in this monumental task. She would handwrite every name in the missing soldiers' office by candlelight, a meticulous, painstaking process fueled by her unwavering commitment to each individual life. The office handled over 63,000 inquiries from desperate families, and through her tireless efforts, she personally identified and marked over 13,000 missing soldiers. This wasn't merely clerical work, it was a sacred duty, a final act of respect for those who had fallen, and a profound act of compassion for those who grieved. She did this with virtually no government support, relying on her own ingenuity, her network of contacts, and her sheer force of will. She traveled to battlefields even after the fighting had stopped to assess aid needs, meticulously searching for graves, gathering information, bringing order to chaos. This immense, self-imposed mission took a toll, but it also cemented her reputation as a woman of unparalleled dedication. She supported war widows in gaining employment, understanding that relief wasn't just about immediate aid, but about long-term stability. She collected hundreds of letters from soldiers' families, each one a testament to the lives she touched, the hope she offered. She publicly criticized the U.S. government for slow disaster responses, using her growing platform to advocate for more effective and humane action. She even provided aid to both sides during the Franco-Prussian War, further solidifying her international reputation as a neutral humanitarian. And so the stage was set, not just for a national movement, but for an international one. The seeds planted by her personal struggles, her wartime experiences, and her unyielding empathy were about to blossom into something truly global. But the story of the American Red Cross and Clara Barton's fight to bring it into being is a tale fraught with challenges, with political machinations, and with an unwavering vision that defied all odds. It's a story that reveals the very essence of that secret burden, that quiet fire within her. And to truly understand it, we must journey across the ocean to a place where the concept of organized, neutral humanitarian aid was already taking root, a journey that would forever alter the course of her remarkable life and, indeed, the course of American history. Her journey led her to Europe, a continent still grappling with the echoes of its own conflicts, yet also a place where a revolutionary idea for organized humanitarianism had taken hold. For a long time, there was a feeling, a deep-seated one, that the principles of the International Red Cross, born from the battlefield horrors of Solferino and the visionary work of Henry Dunant, were somehow not quite right for America. Or, more accurately, that America, with its fierce independence and its recent experience of internal conflict, didn't need such an organization. This was the prevailing sentiment, the political inertia that Clara Barton would have to overcome, single-handedly at first, with a tenacity that would define the rest of her remarkable life. Her encounter with this revolutionary idea came during a period of personal exhaustion and ill health. The relentless pace of her work during and after the Civil War had taken its toll, and her doctors urged her to seek rest and recovery abroad. It was during her visit to Switzerland, a country synonymous with neutrality and humanitarianism, that she first truly learned about the Red Cross. She met with leaders of the International Red Cross, absorbing their principles, understanding their vision for systematic, impartial aid during wartime. The concept resonated deeply with her own experiences on the battlefields, where she had seen firsthand the desperate need for organized relief. This wasn't just a fleeting interest, it was an epiphany, a moment of profound realization that there was a structured, internationally recognized framework for the very work she had been doing intuitively and independently. But Clara Barton, ever the pragmatist, saw beyond the immediate scope of war. She recognized a glaring omission in the existing Geneva Convention, the foundational treaty of the Red Cross movement. The convention focused primarily on the care of wounded soldiers during armed conflict. Yet Barton knew from her own experience that suffering was not confined to battlefields. Natural disasters, floods, fires, hurricanes, earthquakes ravaged communities with equal, if not greater, ferocity. And so, with her characteristic foresight and unwavering advocacy, she helped adapt the Geneva Convention to include natural disaster aid. This was a monumental shift, a broadening of the Red Cross mandate that would become known as the American Amendment or the Good Samaritan Clause. It transformed the Red Cross from solely a wartime organization into a vital, ever-present force for relief in times of peace, addressing the universal needs of humanity, regardless of the cause of their suffering. This visionary expansion was almost entirely due to her relentless campaigning and her ability to articulate the profound need for such an inclusive approach. Her return to America, however, was not met with immediate enthusiasm for this new vision. She faced an uphill battle, fighting for U.S. recognition of the Red Cross for years. The political climate was resistant. There was a prevailing isolationist sentiment, a reluctance to engage in international treaties, and a general belief that America could handle its own affairs without outside influence. Presidents, senators, and powerful figures needed convincing, and Clara Barton, despite her quiet nature, proved to be a formidable lobbyist. She wrote speeches and gave lectures to fundraise for the Red Cross, crisscrossing the country, her voice, though soft, carrying the weight of her wartime experiences and the urgency of her vision. She co-wrote Red Cross promotional pamphlets, carefully crafting messages to educate and persuade the American public and its leaders. Her perseverance, however, was indomitable. She was relentless, refusing to take no for an answer, patiently explaining the benefits, highlighting the humanitarian imperative. And finally, after years of tireless advocacy, her efforts bore fruit. The American Red Cross was established in 1881. It was a victory hard won, a testament to her singular determination. She was 60 when she founded the American Red Cross, an age when many would consider retirement. But for Clara, it was a new beginning, the culmination of a lifetime of experiences and a testament to her unwavering belief in the power of organized compassion. She served as its first president until 1904, a remarkable tenure that saw the organization grow from a nascent idea into a powerful force for good. Her leadership style, however, was uniquely her own. She was known for her precise bookkeeping of donations, ensuring every penny was accounted for, a reflection of her inherent honesty and her meticulous nature. In an era when charitable organizations were often opaque, Barton insisted on transparency and accountability, not for show, but because she believed the trust of the public was paramount to the success of her mission. This dedication to financial rectitude stemmed from a deep-seated belief that aid was a sacred trust, and she guarded that trust with the fervor of a lioness protecting her cubs. Her commitment to direct, effective aid extended to the very heart of the Red Cross's operational arm, its nurses. She personally selected Red Cross field nurses, understanding that the quality of care rested on the caliber of the individuals providing it. These were not just bureaucratic decisions, they were personal investments in the mission. She considered them comrades, not subordinates, fostering a spirit of mutual respect and shared purpose that was revolutionary for its time. This careful selection process was a subtle but profound reflection of that secret burden, the deep personal investment she had in every life touched by the Red Cross. Yet this very independence, this deeply personal leadership style, often brought her into direct conflict with the burgeoning bureaucracy of the organization she had founded. She often clashed with Red Cross board members over leadership style. They sought more formal processes, more delegated authority, while Clara, forged in the crucible of direct action on the battlefield, believed in immediate, personal intervention. She disliked bureaucracy, but mastered it to get things done, a crucial distinction. She might chafe under rules, but she understood their necessity in a larger organization, navigating the political landscape of her own creation with surprising deftness when it served her ultimate humanitarian goals. Her impact was felt almost immediately across the nation. Barely a year after its founding, in 1882, she participated in flood relief in Mississippi. It was one of the first major tests of the new organization, and Barton, leading from the front, demonstrated the practical application of the American Amendment. She helped survivors of the Johnstown flood in 1889, one of the deadliest disasters in American history. The scale of the devastation was immense, but the Red Cross, under Barton's direct leadership, was there, providing aid, solace, and a systematic approach to recovery. She helped create a first aid training program for the Red Cross, a vital step in empowering ordinary citizens to respond effectively in emergencies. She helped create a system for national disaster response, moving beyond ad hoc efforts to a more coordinated, efficient approach. She was a pioneer in disaster triage techniques, bringing her battlefield experience to civilian crises, ensuring that those with the most urgent needs received attention first. She personally selected Red Cross building designs, understanding that even the physical spaces of aid needed to be practical, comforting, and efficient. Her humanitarian reach stretched far beyond American shores. In a truly audacious move for a woman of her era, she traveled to Armenia to aid genocide survivors, confronting unimaginable brutality with courage and compassion. She visited Istanbul to aid Armenians during the massacres, demonstrating her willingness to go wherever human suffering called her. She negotiated with foreign officials in multiple languages, a testament to her intellectual prowess and her relentless preparation. This wasn't merely about translation, it was about building trust, about finding common ground in the face of profound tragedy. She received a Silver Cross of Merit from the German Red Cross and later the Iron Cross, both rare and significant honors for a woman and a testament to her international stature and the profound impact of her work. She was honored by Japan for promoting international aid, solidifying her global reputation. She even received personal thanks from Queen Victoria, a recognition of her extraordinary efforts on the world stage. Her methods were often unconventional, always practical. She once administered Red Cross aid on horseback, demonstrating her adaptability and her determination to reach those in need, no matter how remote. She helped formalize emergency shelters for disaster victims, creating safe havens, a crucial innovation in a time when such facilities were often improvised and inadequate. She wore practical men's boots during field work, prioritizing utility and comfort over fashionable but impractical attire, another subtle defiance of gender norms. She carried a whistle to signal volunteers during emergencies, a small but effective tool for coordination in chaotic environments. She also kept dried herbs in her pack for makeshift medicine, a reflection of her resourceful and self-reliant nature. She was a constant presence, not just in the field, but in the public consciousness. She was featured on the cover of many women's journals, becoming a symbol of strength, compassion, and female leadership. She designed early Red Cross disaster supply kits, applying her practical knowledge to create efficient and effective packages of aid. She worked 20-hour days during crises, a testament to her unparalleled stamina and dedication. She refused to take a salary from the Red Cross, a profound commitment that underlined her selfless devotion to the cause. And she wore a Red Cross pin everywhere after its founding, a silent yet powerful emblem of her life's devotion. Clara Barton's life was a testament to the extraordinary power of a single individual driven by an unwavering moral compass. From the shy girl in North Oxford to the angel of the battlefield, to the founder of a global humanitarian movement, Her journey was marked by a persistent battle against injustice, an unyielding commitment to alleviating suffering, and a profound, almost mystical connection to the human condition. And as we continue our exploration of her remarkable journey, remember that lingering question, that whisper of a deeper truth. For her journey was not merely about what she did, but why she did it with such an insatiable hunger for good. The answer, my friends, lies deeper, hidden in the very heart of her tireless spirit, and it is a secret we will continue to uncover together. Her journey continued to unfold, a relentless pursuit of mercy across continents and through the darkest corners of human experience. The challenges she faced, the innovations she spearheaded, and the enduring principles she upheld reveal more and more of that driving force within her, that secret burden that propelled her forward. Consider, if you will, the sheer audaciousness of her actions. She once led a food convoy into a war zone, not as a remote commander, but at the very head of the procession, ensuring vital provisions reached those starving amidst conflict. This wasn't a task for the faint of heart or for someone content to direct from a safe distance. This was direct, dangerous, and deeply personal. She believed that aid must not merely be distributed, but delivered, sometimes at the very edge of human endurance. The scars of war ran deep, not just on the land, but on the souls of men, and Clara Barton, with a compassion that transcended the horrors she witnessed, personally buried the dead after some battles. Imagine the scene, the quiet, methodical work of laying shattered bodies to rest, a final act of dignity in a landscape of desecration. This was a task most would delegate, a duty too grim for many. But for Clara, it was an imperative, a direct acknowledgement of the profound cost of conflict, and a testament to her belief that every life, even in death, deserved respect. This intimate engagement with the ultimate suffering, with the cessation of life itself, forged in her a profound understanding of humanity's fragility, solidifying that unshakable commitment to preserve it. Her life was a constant, defiant declaration that traditional gender roles would not limit her work. She refused to let gender norms limit her work. In an age when women were expected to remain in the domestic sphere, Clara Barton traversed battlefields, negotiated with foreign dignitaries, and confronted disaster zones with an authority and independence that astonished and sometimes irked her male contemporaries. Her power lay not in overt rebellion, but in simply doing what needed to be done, proving through action that competence and compassion knew no gender. She believed women were natural crisis managers, a conviction she had proven repeatedly in her own leadership and her encouragement of other women. Her meticulous nature, born perhaps from her early days as a copyist, extended to every facet of her humanitarian efforts. She kept diaries documenting nearly every major mission, a trove of detailed observations, logistical challenges, and the human stories behind the statistics. These journals were not just personal reflections, they were invaluable records, a testament to her desire for order amidst chaos, and a way to learn from every experience. These were the raw materials from which she forged better methods, a constant striving for improvement in the face of ever-present needs. Her humanitarian compass pointed her towards global crises. She helped organize aid during the Russian famine of 1892, a distant tragedy that nonetheless galvanized her compassion. This demonstrated her deep belief in international cooperation and her understanding that human suffering was a universal concern, transcending national boundaries. She insisted Red Cross aid be given without regard to nationality, a core principle of the International Red Cross movement that she championed with every fiber of her being. Even when disaster struck closer to home, her response was immediate and comprehensive. She assisted victims of the Michigan forest fires in 1881, recognizing the devastation that could be wrought by natural forces, even as the ink was still drying on the American Red Cross Charter. This immediate engagement proved the vital necessity of the American amendment she had fought so hard to secure. Her influence extended even to the literary giants of her time. She was praised by Leo Tolstoy for her humanitarian work, a remarkable testament to the global reach of her reputation and the profound respect she commanded. Imagine the Russian novelist, known for his deep moral convictions, acknowledging the profound impact of this American woman. While she understood the need for structure, her spirit yearned for direct action. She disliked bureaucracy, but mastered it to get things done, a pragmatic approach that allowed her to navigate the complex world of organizational management without losing sight of her core mission. She pioneered disaster triage techniques, bringing her battlefield experience of prioritizing the wounded to the chaos of civilian emergencies, saving countless lives through systematic assessment. A small personal detail speaks volumes about her dedication. She wore a Red Cross armband sewn by her sister, a tangible connection to family and a visible symbol of her unwavering commitment, even in the field. This was not a uniform dictated by an organization, but a personal emblem, a bond between sisters in service of humanity. Her compassion extended to the youngest victims of conflict. She advocated for war orphans in Europe, recognizing the profound and lasting trauma inflicted upon children by conflict. Her concern wasn't just for immediate physical needs, but for the long-term well-being and psychological healing of those most vulnerable. Despite the widespread public adoration, she disliked public praise and often deflected it, always insisting that thank the cause, not the worker. This humility, this profound self-effacement was a hallmark of her character, a quiet insistence that the mission was always greater than the individual. Yet her impact was undeniable, and she received personal thanks from Queen Victoria, a recognition of her extraordinary efforts on the world stage. Her commitment to practical education was central to her mission. She trained volunteers in hygiene and wound care, empowering ordinary citizens with the skills to save lives. This was about more than just distributing supplies. It was about building capacity, fostering self-reliance within communities. She believed strongly in the power of individual action, that every person, no matter how humble, could make a difference. This belief fueled her tireless efforts to recruit and train volunteers, to empower them to become agents of change. The Spanish-American War in 1898 once again called her to action. She organized nursing efforts during the Spanish-American War, bringing the established infrastructure of the Red Cross to bear on a new conflict. This demonstrated the vital role the organization could play in both domestic and international crises. Yet, consistent with her principles, she opposed Red Cross involvement in military strategy. Her role, and the role of the Red Cross, was to alleviate suffering, not to participate in the mechanisms of war itself. Her neutrality was paramount. The human element of her work was always at the forefront. She kept hundreds of letters from soldiers' families, each one a poignant reminder of the lives she touched, the hope she offered, the closure she helped to provide. These letters were not just records. They were a sacred trust, a tangible connection to the human impact of her work. She supported equal aid for poor urban families and rural ones, refusing to allow economic or geographic divides to influence the distribution of humanitarian assistance. Her compassion was universal, her aid impartial. Her collaborations extended to other social reformers. She collaborated with Jane Addams on relief policy ideas, engaging with other leading thinkers of her time to develop more effective and compassionate approaches to social welfare. This demonstrated her willingness to learn, to adapt, and to collaborate for the greater good. She insisted on high-quality food for Red Cross rations, understanding that proper nutrition was fundamental to recovery and dignity. This was not merely about providing sustenance, but about providing dignified sustenance. Her innovative spirit led to practical advancements in disaster response. She developed one of the first mobile emergency units, a precursor to modern ambulance and rapid response teams. This was a direct reflection of her battlefield experience, where mobility and speed were critical. She coordinated relief during the Charleston earthquake of 1886, a major natural disaster that tested the young Red Cross's capabilities and further solidified its reputation. She led fundraising drives during economic depressions, understanding that financial hardship did not diminish human need, but often exacerbated it. Her efforts ensured that the Red Cross remained a vital resource even during times of national economic strain. Her core philosophy for the Red Cross was simple but profound. She believed the Red Cross should be politically neutral, a sanctuary of aid untainted by partisan allegiances. This was the bedrock of its international acceptance and its ability to serve all humanity. This principle was rigorously adhered to, even when it meant declining prestigious offers. She was once offered a U.S. Senate seat and declined, recognizing that a political office, no matter how influential, would compromise the essential neutrality of her humanitarian mission. Her ingenuity wasn't limited to large-scale operations. She taught girls how to care for wounded animals as nursing prep, instilling empathy and practical skills from a young age. This gentle, holistic approach to care was a beautiful reflection of her own compassionate spirit. In moments of extreme financial strain for the Red Cross, she once sold her jewelry to fund relief efforts, a truly selfless act that underscored her profound dedication and willingness to sacrifice her personal possessions for the cause. She studied battlefield medicine textbooks in her free time, a testament to her lifelong commitment to learning and her desire to always be as effective as possible. She understood the power of public awareness. She used press coverage to highlight relief needs, skillfully leveraging the burgeoning media landscape to rally support and resources for disaster victims. She was a master of communication, translating the grim realities of suffering into urgent calls for action. And so her story continues, a testament to the quiet strength and unwavering commitment of a woman who dedicated her entire being to the alleviation of suffering, forever expanding the definition of humanitarian aid. Her journey continued, relentlessly pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible for a woman and for an organization dedicated to mercy. The further we delve, the clearer becomes that powerful, driving current beneath her tireless actions, that secret burden that propelled her forward. Her global engagement continued even as she aged. She traveled to Istanbul to aid Armenians during the massacres, demonstrating her unwavering commitment to humanitarian intervention wherever it was needed. This was an incredibly dangerous journey for a woman, but her resolve was absolute. By this time, she had established Red Cross chapters in over 20 U.S. states, laying the groundwork for a truly national organization, a network of compassion spanning the country. Her dedication was such that personal comfort was a distant luxury. She slept on floors during many relief missions, demonstrating her willingness to endure hardship alongside those she sought to help. She wrote letters to families of fallen soldiers personally, providing comfort and closure to grieving loved ones, a deeply personal touch that resonated profoundly. She studied French and German to work with foreign Red Cross leaders, ensuring effective communication and collaboration on the international stage. Even her diet reflected her commitment to a thoughtful, purposeful life. She was a vegetarian late in life, a dietary choice that, while personal, speaks to a broader sensibility of compassion and non-violence. She helped design the first Red Cross headquarters building, ensuring that the physical home of the organization reflected its mission of practical aid and dignified service. Despite her immense contributions and her pioneering spirit, she faced age discrimination even at the height of her leadership. This was a frustrating, yet sadly common reality for women who dared to lead for extended periods. Yet, she persevered, her wisdom and experience proving invaluable. Her legacy continues to inspire generations, evident in the fact that she inspired the creation of the Junior Red Cross, fostering a spirit of service and compassion in young people. She created a list of recommended nurse qualities, setting a high standard for those who would follow in her footsteps, emphasizing not just skill, but empathy and resilience. Her foresight extended beyond physical wounds. She believed disaster relief should include mental health support, recognizing the profound psychological toll of trauma and loss. This was a remarkably progressive idea for her time, anticipating modern understandings of holistic care. She was influenced by Florence Nightingale's reports, absorbing the lessons of the Crimean War and applying them to her own pioneering work. Her reach extended to island nations devastated by natural forces. She helped with relief in the Puerto Rico hurricane of 1899, demonstrating the Red Cross's capacity to respond to crises in America's territories. She mentored young women interested in social reform, passing on her wisdom, her strategies, and her unwavering dedication to making the world a better place. Her principles were clear and unyielding. She insisted Red Cross not align with any church, maintaining its secular neutrality to ensure aid was given impartially, without proselytization. While a Unitarian herself, she supported all faiths equally, understanding that humanitarianism transcended religious divides. Her practicality even extended to her attire. She wore practical men's boots during field work, prioritizing utility and comfort over fashionable but impractical attire, another subtle defiance of gender norms. She helped draft early Red Cross volunteer codes of conduct, establishing ethical guidelines for those who would serve. She developed a rating system for disaster severity, a practical tool for allocating resources and coordinating effective responses. The very essence of her leadership was a quiet encouragement, a belief in the inherent capacity of others to contribute. She encouraged women to lead local Red Cross chapters, empowering them to take on significant organizational roles in their communities. This wasn't merely delegation, it was an act of faith, a recognition of women's natural abilities in crisis management, a conviction she had proven repeatedly in her own life. She understood that a national organization could only thrive if it had strong, localized roots, nurtured by committed individuals. Her fundraising efforts were as imaginative as they were persistent. She used theatre events to raise money for relief, understanding the power of public engagement and entertainment to draw support for humanitarian causes. This innovative approach showcased her ability to adapt to different contexts and find creative solutions to perpetual challenges. Her fame and reputation were such that she was offered a diplomatic post and turned it down, another testament to her unwavering commitment to the neutrality of the Red Cross. She believed in quiet heroism over personal fame, consistently deflecting praise and focusing attention on the cause, not herself. It was another subtle demonstration of that secret burden, her personal discomfort with accolades, her profound conviction that the work itself was the reward. The American landscape, perpetually challenged by natural forces, kept her in constant motion. She delivered relief to victims of the 1884 Ohio River flood, a testament to the ongoing need for the Red Cross's services and her immediate response to cries for help. During these large-scale crises, she took only brief naps, snatching moments of rest when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, but always returning to the task with renewed vigor. Her physical stamina was as legendary as her moral fortitude. Her foresight and proactive approach extended to even the most catastrophic of events. She helped organize disaster relief after Mount Pelée erupted in 1902, demonstrating her willingness to engage with global catastrophes and bring the resources of the American Red Cross to bear wherever suffering was most acute. She believed education and compassion were the core of nursing, a philosophy that guided her training programs and her selection of field nurses. This wasn't just about technical skill, it was about the heart of the caregiver. Her commitment to secular, impartial aid was unwavering. She kept her Red Cross work largely separate from religion, ensuring that aid was provided to all without proselytization or preference based on faith. And through it all, despite the dangers and the immense pressure, she maintained a quiet inner strength. She once said, "I may be compelled to face danger, but never fear it." This profound statement reveals the core of her courageous spirit, a resignation to the inevitability of peril, coupled with an absence of paralyzing fear. It was a strength born, perhaps, from facing down so many personal and professional battles, and from the deep conviction that her mission was righteous. Her life was a constant living embodiment of her principles, and she continued to forge new paths, always seeking to refine and expand the reach of mercy. Her vision for humanitarian aid was relentless in its pursuit of excellence, forever pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible. That quiet determination, that persistent fire within her, continued to shape her every endeavor, each one a testament to that secret burden she carried. Her organizational genius extended to practical guides for others. She published a guide for volunteer organization, sharing her invaluable experience and knowledge to empower local communities to respond effectively to crises. She required background checks on key Red Cross staff, understanding the importance of trust and integrity in an organization dealing with vulnerable populations and significant resources. This proactive measure spoke to her pragmatism and her desire for the Red Cross to be beyond reproach. She was also a visionary in disaster preparedness. She helped develop the idea of community disaster planning, recognizing that effective response began long before a crisis hit, with proactive preparation at the local level. This concept, now a cornerstone of modern disaster management, was revolutionary for its time. She included first aid supplies in every Red Cross parcel, ensuring that immediate medical needs could be addressed even in the most remote or devastated areas. She personally selected Red Cross building designs, ensuring they were functional, accessible, and reflected the organization's mission. The psychological toll of war and disaster weighed heavily on her. She had a deep interest in mental illness after the war, recognizing the hidden wounds that often lingered long after physical injuries healed. This was a remarkably empathetic and forward-thinking concern for her era. Her compassion extended to all, regardless of allegiance. She supported humane treatment of the wounded, on both sides, carrying forward the principle of neutrality that had defined her battlefield work. And she carried a tin of morphine during her relief missions, a practical necessity to alleviate extreme pain, another testament to her readiness for the brutal realities of suffering. She believed no war was truly just, a profound pacifist sentiment born from her direct experience of conflict's horrific human cost. Her international engagement was a lifelong commitment. She maintained international Red Cross correspondence until her 80s, staying connected with global humanitarian efforts, sharing insights, and advocating for universal principles of aid. This continued dedication spoke to her vision of a world united in compassion. She assisted in efforts after the 1900 New Jersey train crash, bringing her expertise to a different kind of disaster, one born of industrialization. She worked with the Army to improve battlefield sanitation, recognizing that disease was often a deadlier foe than bullets. Her practical interventions saved countless lives, both during and after conflict. Her humility and respect for her colleagues were defining traits. She called her nurses comrades rather than subordinates, fostering a spirit of mutual respect and shared purpose. Yet, her groundbreaking independence also garnered criticism. She was accused of being too independent by some male officials, a familiar refrain for women who dared to operate outside traditional boundaries. But Clara Barton was undeterred, knowing her methods achieved results. Her commitment to racial equality was unwavering. She mentored Frances Reed Elliott, one of the first Black Red Cross nurses, actively working to break down racial barriers within the organization and promote diversity in aid efforts. This was a powerful statement in a segregated society. Her compassion extended to various marginalized groups. She sent wool blankets to miners during labor strikes, recognizing their vulnerability and providing aid where it was desperately needed, even when it involved politically charged situations. She believed charity should never be condescending, insisting that aid be delivered with dignity and respect for the recipient. Her ingenuity in times of war was remarkable. She used coded language to smuggle supplies past front lines, demonstrating her ability to circumvent obstacles and ensure vital aid reached those in desperate need. This was a high-stakes game, and she played it with cunning and courage. Her compassion extended to all living beings. She helped care for horses injured in war, understanding that animals, too, were victims of conflict and deserved humane treatment. She offered aid to Confederate families after the war ended, extending a hand of reconciliation and demonstrating the Red Cross's impartial mission even in the aftermath of a bitter civil conflict. Her international recognition continued to grow. She was honored by the Serbian Red Cross, further solidifying her global reputation as a humanitarian pioneer. Her proactive approach extended to every disaster. She often scouted disaster areas before sending volunteers, conducting first-hand assessments to ensure resources were deployed effectively and efficiently. This direct engagement was a hallmark of her leadership. She actively sought out and worked with diverse communities. She worked with African American communities during relief efforts, ensuring that aid reached all those in need, regardless of race. She promoted hygiene education after natural disasters, understanding that public health was crucial for preventing secondary crises. She helped establish emergency kitchens in cities, providing vital sustenance to displaced and vulnerable populations. Sometimes her efforts required a degree of anonymity. She sometimes disguised herself to avoid media attention, preferring to focus on the work rather than the fanfare. Her modesty and humility were genuine. She advocated for international disaster cooperation, understanding that global challenges required global solutions. This vision of interconnected humanitarianism was far ahead of its time. Her belief in women's innate abilities was a recurring theme. She believed women were natural crisis managers, a conviction rooted in her own experiences and those of the many dedicated women she saw serving alongside her. Her personal legacy was carefully preserved. She donated her personal Red Cross memorabilia to archives, ensuring that future generations would have access to the history and principles of the organization she founded. Even in her later years, her body sometimes betrayed her tireless spirit. She was once treated for exhaustion at age 76, a stark reminder of the immense physical toll her relentless work took on her. Yet, she always returned to her mission. She even found time to write for younger audiences. She wrote a children's book on helping others, inspiring the next generation to embrace compassion and service. Her home remained a hub of activity even after her official retirement. She hosted Red Cross meetings in her home until retirement, continuing to provide guidance and inspiration to the organization. Her compassion extended beyond human beings. She supported animal welfare as part of community aid, demonstrating a holistic approach to care that recognized the interconnectedness of all life. Even in the face of internal conflict, her dedication was unwavering. She considered quitting during a Red Cross scandal, but refused, understanding that her presence was vital to the integrity of the institution. The sheer volume of her personal commitment is astounding. She wrote over 4,000 letters related to Red Cross cases, each one a testament to her personal engagement with the suffering of individuals and families. She pushed for government funding of disaster relief, recognizing that humanitarian efforts required significant resources and that government partnership was essential for large-scale responses. She once slept in a barn to stay close to relief workers, demonstrating her solidarity with those on the front lines and her willingness to endure hardship. She carried iodine and bandages in a personal satchel, always ready to provide immediate aid wherever she went. She praised the bravery of volunteer firefighters, recognizing the courage of those who risked their lives in service to their communities. She founded a short-lived but influential first aid magazine, further demonstrating her commitment to education and public awareness. And so, the story of Clara Barton continues to unfold, each moment revealing another facet of her boundless compassion and unwavering resolve, always guided by that quiet, profound inner truth.